Welcome, everyone, to the Leaders Lounge podcast. My name is Karen Neckelman, and I am the marketing coordinator here at ASPA. Today, in our bootcamp series, we are with our keynote speaker, Merit Kahn. Hello, Merit, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Karen. It's good to be here.
Yeah, of course. So, to start the conversation, can you first tell us a bit about yourself?
A bit about myself. Well, I've been an entrepreneur since 1998. I'm certified in emotional intelligence. I speak at a lot of conferences like I did at ASPA. And mostly what people want to know about me is, how do I blend the combination of business content that I've shared with audiences for more than 20 years on leadership and sales, being more influential, getting to the real issues, and lessening stress in the workplace, things like that. With a comedy career that I have now, and I tour a one-woman inspiring comedy show called Optimistic Personality Disorder. And what's really fun for me now is helping people to lighten the load that they hold because we're all carrying a lot of stress and there's heavy workloads at work. And I do believe that, laughter lightens that up. So humor has become a very good business tool, probably one of the most underrated business tools. And I love to bring that kind of a message to audiences these days.
That sounds great. Thank you. So, your session is called The People Advantage. What do you think is the biggest mistake leaders make in the conversations that matter the most, whether they're interviewing a candidate or giving feedback or trying to retain a great employee?
Well, I think the biggest mistake that I see is that people mistake that the question that somebody is bringing them is the real question, or the issue that someone's bringing you is the real issue. There's usually something underneath that. And as leaders, we have to remember that the question being asked is that surface level. And first, our job, because we do want to answer the real question, is to really make sure that we're asking questions to understand instead of just trying to act as if we have all the answers and delivering our brilliant solutions too soon. Because we just don't want to address the wrong issue. We want to address the real issue.
Hmm. So, and you introduced the mindset, mechanics, motion framework. Can you walk us through each of those elements and explain how they work together or to help leaders become more effective with people?
Absolutely. So mindset is what we think, right? Is how we think first for ourselves about a question or an issue or anything that's happening. We take our actions, we get what we say and take our actions from what we think. That's where it all sparks from. So a lot of times people will say, I want to be a more effective leader. What are the communication skills that I need? What do I need to say and do to be more effective in this role? And that's a great question to ask. But the real issue is, what are you thinking? What are your beliefs about yourself, your leadership skills, your role, the other people you work with, the industry? There's so many thoughts that we have. How are those thoughts giving you what you will then say and do in your role? And if we skip over that mindset piece, we are trying to put a band-aid on an issue. We're trying to say and do things like other leaders might say and do without putting it through our own thought process. And so I've always brought that message to an audience is first we have to really understand what are our belief systems. And sometimes we have beliefs about money, authority, influence, sales, our specific industry, people in general. We have beliefs, and they were handed to us by well-meaning people, probably our parents, our coaches, our teachers growing up, our the influencers in our current lives, the internet, social media, right? You're handed all these beliefs. Sometimes they're not always serving us in the role that we play. And so we have to distinguish for ourselves which beliefs we want to hand back and which ones, if we could have a blank sheet of paper and we could write down any belief we wanted, would we choose this one? So, just a quick example, if as a young person, maybe graduating college, you might think, $20,000 sounds like a lot of money. Well, fast forward years later, you have a family, you have expensive tastes, you like good vacations. $20,000 may not seem like a lot of money to you anymore. But if you take that belief with you that may be true for you as a younger person, and you apply that to your current life, it doesn't fit. Kind of like that hand-me-down sweater from your cousin. It just doesn't fit. So we have to learn to hand back some of those, and those new beliefs will give us new ways of speaking and acting in our role that may be more supportive to the roles that we're playing in this current time. So that's mindset. The mechanics, think about mechanics as the nuts and bolts, what you say to get your job done. So this is where a lot of your expertise about your industry and the role and HR and everything that you know, policies, procedures, all of those things that you know help you speak with expertise. But one of the most important things that we have to remember as experts in our field is that we want to use that expertise to ask the best questions, not necessarily give the best solutions. As leaders, our job really is to empower others to come up with solutions themselves so they run into our offices a little bit less because they know they have some more agency over solving problems. They've developed that confidence in themselves to be able to do that. And that's how we know we're good leaders. People keep coming to us a little bit less because they're more and more capable. So the rule here with mechanics is act, the old adage of act as if you've got it all together isn't as powerful for leaders as the ask as if concept. So you want to ask as if you really want to find the right solution to that problem. So that's mechanics, what you say. And then motion is all about what you do, because you can think all these great thoughts and say all these great things, but if you are not in action, nothing is going to happen. So being in motion, there's two main things that I shared with the group. One is that the reason people are not in motion is as important to understand as how to motivate yourself to get into motion. And the reason people are not in motion is uh, high stress, they're overwhelmed, they're uncertain, those kinds of things. There's fear. So we want to address the real issue. And what that means is you can't like positive think your way into action if you're fundamentally fearful, uncertain, overwhelmed, like that.
Mm.
So one of the things that this is where humor comes in, right? It's hard to be afraid and laughing, hysterically at the same time. Like those are just really hard things to do simultaneously. So when I say to audiences, get some more comedy in your life, like go to the club and or put on a sitcom that makes you laugh, or go look up something on YouTube from a favorite comedian or somebody who's new to you you haven't seen, or come see my optimistic personality disorder show. That's a good prescription. But get some laughter in your life because it just relaxes you. It creates space. And when you have space, you can come up with more solutions. When you have more solutions, you'll have more confidence that you can solve the problem. And that will get you more into motion. And the second thing, real quick, is nothing that I invented. You've all heard this before, but take a big project, break it into chunks. And so I teach a strategy that I call the 5 9s. So you take a 9 month big project and you break it into where do I need to be in 9 weeks, 9 days, 9 hours, and 9 minutes, right? So what can you do in the next 9 minutes to move you forward, and that can dissipate some of that stress and get you into action as well, because you're taking a small step to lead you to the bigger thing. So that was a very long answer to your
Yeah.
question,
No, but
but
I love that last advice. That's really helpful, I think. Like to
well,
get,
good.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. So you talk about asking better questions. What's one interview or leadership question every school HR leader should start asking, you think, and why does it make such a big difference?
I think the best question you can ask is sometimes it's just a pause, right? Just instead of being, you don't have to think about the right question. If you remember what I started with in the first uh, part of this conversation, the question that somebody brings you or the issue they bring you is rarely the real issue. So if you remember that as a concept, it doesn't really matter that you have this perfectly written question that you're going to ask. Because if you are always responding to people in the same way, if somebody walks in your office on Monday and they ask you this question and you respond, "That's an interesting question. Why do you ask?" And it's the same thing you do on Tuesday, on Wednesday, and Thursday, it becomes overkill, right? They're anticipating it, and then it doesn't really look like you're genuinely interested. It appears to them like you learned this question that you're supposed to ask. And so what I'd rather that you do is just remember the principle that the question or the issue somebody's bringing me is rarely the real thing. And my job is to just pause or or just pick a word out of the sentence and parrot it back in the form of a question, right? So somebody might say, "Do you think we should do this on Tuesday?" And I might go, "Tuesday?" And they're naturally going to say more. "Well, I was thinking maybe we would do it Wednesday, or here's what," like all of a sudden they just say more. Just give space for somebody to fill in more of their thoughts. That helps you in two ways. Number one, it helps you really get clear about what their true issue or question is. It also buys you a little bit more time to think more, about some of the other angles to it. So I think the best thing that you can do is just remember to pause and just give it a little space.
Yeah, for sure. So, if your listeners could leave this conversation remembering just one principle from the people's advantage, what would you want it to be? How do you hope it changes the way they lead their teams?
I think the one main message is that leaders, well, open minds discover possibilities and closed minds defend positions. And when I shared that idea at the conference, I use this example of a fist. So, as you're listening to this podcast, if you make a fist in front of you and you can see, like, okay, your fist this represents a closed mind. And if you think about, if you just kind of like point your finger and you try to, wedge your other fingers from your other hand into this closed fist, it doesn't work. And so if your fingers, and we use the analogy of jazz hands because I'm a performer and I like performer analogies, but if you think of, jazz hands as exciting new ideas, you can't infuse jazz hands into a closed fist, right? You can't take great ideas and somehow infiltrate someone's closed mind. So the analogy is you want to open someone's mind to receive new possibilities. So if you dramatically open your closed fist hand and now you have this open palm, that's where the jazz hands can land. That's where all the ideas, the new information, the updated belief systems, the better things to say, and the more creative actions to take. That's where there's space for all of that goodness, all those new possibilities to take root. And that's the message I hope that everybody left that session with, is knowing that closed minds defend positions. If you think they're defending, like a fist is ready to pound into something in some act of violence, right? Like it's you're defending that. Just nobody likes that, right? There's no room for new creative solutions and possibilities in that stance. But with an open mind, open minds discover possibilities, and that's what I intended to leave the audience with at the event, and my same intention for this podcast. Like, Just keep your minds opened and know that the best strategy for a leader, the first thing that you're responsible for doing is to open the minds of the other people on your team that work around you so that they can see new possibilities and they're not just trying to defend the positions that they have.
Okay, well, Merit, I want to thank you first for doing the podcast and second for joining us at the summer boot camp. And this was a great conversation, very eye-opening and refreshing. So thank
Well,
you.
thank you. Thank you, Karen. I enjoyed it.